This is Dr. Leslie, Performance Physical Therapist, and today we're talking about releasing the hip flexor. It's a muscle in the front of our hips. And here I have my device here, the trigger point cane. I'm not going to go in depth on how it fully works as far as like the different knobs. We're going to primarily focus on a couple spots that pertain to the hip flexor. We're going to primarily focus on this free flowing point to get to the hip flexor. So to find the hip flexor and to start this, we're going to find a yoga mat and we're going to get down on our back. So what you're going to do, we call this hook line position, both knees bent. Now, if I want to just do my left hip flexor to start, I'm going to straighten out my other leg here. To first locate the hip flexor, that's the first step. I can take my thumb here and then place my thumb on the top of the hip. And to find that hip flexor, I'm just gonna bring up my hip 5 to 10 times. All right, and I'm feeling to see where does that hip flexor pop out. So as I'm doing this, you'll feel a muscle just pop out as you're doing this. And as I'm doing it here, I feel the hip flexor pop out right there. Okay. Now, if you have a lot of tension, it will pop out even more. For me, my tension is not too bad, but I definitely feel that pop out tendon right there as soon as I bring up my hip. So I find it, and once you start feeling like a blocking feel or a hardening feel, that's where we usually have like a muscle knot in our hip flexor. And then with that point where my fingers are, I'm going to replace my fingers with the cane here. And right there where I feel that hardened block, I'm going to place the trigger point in place. And I'm going to apply some nice, gentle downward pressure into that muscle, that tendon. And then what you want to do, you want to take a nice deep breath in through your nose and out like you're blowing out a candle when you exhale. So this will be the cadence. Each breath, that muscle knot wants to slowly release. And I'm just holding that pressure there. So that's my third breath. I want to do 6 breaths. Good. And that's 6 breaths right there. So that's just one spot, right? Usually, if we have one spot that's tensed up, I just travel down the line and I could find a different spot and I could apply some pressure there. So usually if I travel up and if I travel down and travel back up, I'm going to be right in front of it, right on that hip flexor. And just to double confirm that I'm there, I could just bring up my hip and you're going to feel that hip flexor just pop out. And you could repeat that cycle for anywhere you feel tension. And you want to do 6 breaths every time you feel a spot. And that will be the sequence of how we release our hip flexor.